The anime begins by showing us a magical forest, where we meet our protagonist Lloyd, who is trying to hunt a rabbit. However, since he's not very skilled, he fails at it. The rabbit manages to escape, but by bad luck, it then gets caught by his older brother, this guy here named Shoma, who has just returned home from one of his trips. Lloyd is happy to see him, and as a souvenir, Shoma gives him a book about dragons. After that, they decide to head back home. Time passes, and at night, we see the protagonist looking a bit older as he enters a house where a witch named Marie lives. She tries to act mysterious, reminding him that anyone who asks witches for favors must be ready to sacrifice something of value. Lloyd simply tells her he came from the countryside to become a soldier, wants to stay with her for a while, and introduces himself. Marie repeats a phrase, but Lloyd points out he already told her his name. Marie gets annoyed and tells him to find an inn in the town square. As she sits, she asks what rural village he's from, and Lloyd says, Kulun. Marie is shocked and asks for the name of the village chief. Lloyd says it's Alka. Then he takes something out of his backpack, a sphere he was asked to show to Marie. The sphere glows and projects the image of village chief Alka. When Marie sees her, she bows immediately. Alka says it's been a while since she saw her student and explains why Lloyd is there, asking Marie to look after him. Marie tries to ask something, but Alka says she can't answer because she's just a hologram. She asks her to take care of Lloyd and says goodbye. Marie gets up, throws the sphere into the closet, and yells about why Alka keeps appearing and making her do such a silly task, so Lloyd apologizes. Marie tells him it's not his fault and says she'll take care of him until his entrance exam, letting him use the room in the back. Lloyd is happy and says he'll be glad to spend time with her, heading to settle in the back room. Marie sits down, calls Alka lowly grandma, and says Lloyd is so friendly. Suddenly, Alka appears behind her, warning that if Marie ever tries anything bad with Lloyd, she'll turn her into a frog. Marie asks how she got there, and Alka says she used teleportation magic and the crystal as a portal. Marie is impressed and tells her not to use such overpowered spells. Alka again warns Marie that if she even thinks about anything inappropriate with Lloyd, she'll turn her into a frog forever, then leaves her with a temporary curse of constant accidents. Marie complains that Alka has enough magic to destroy the world, but uses it for such a silly spell. The next day, we see Lloyd making breakfast. Marie wakes up to find herself tucked in and sees Lloyd cooking. He brings her breakfast and apologizes for using the kitchen without permission. She tells him not to worry and starts eating. Marie asks him if he's sure about becoming a soldier, and Lloyd says yes, apologizing as he explains that he and his brother trained a lot when they were younger. He also admired someone from the novels he read, a very strong and admirable soldier. Marie tells him that's why he wants to become a soldier and take the entrance exam for the Azami Kingdom's military academy. Lloyd says yes and explains there are 4 tests: a physical exam, a written exam, a combat exam, and a magic test. He adds that he's worried about the combat test, since it took him 6 days to walk to the kingdom of Azami. Marie tells Lloyd that Kulun is far from the kingdom, and that 6 days is a short time, mentioning she had to change several trains. The protagonist says he came running. Marie is impressed, saying his stamina is very high, and he shouldn't worry. Lloyd says that his grandfather would have taken only 2 days to get there, which is why he feels he doesn't have much stamina. Marie asks if he met any monsters on the way, to which Lloyd replies no, but that he did encounter several wild animals like giant locusts and dragons. Marie yells that those are monsters and very dangerous. The young man laughs, saying even he knows how to tell animals from monsters that monsters are those who say they will rule the world. Marie says those are demons, slams the table, causing coffee to spill on her face. Lloyd grabs a towel and cleans her. Marie notices how beautiful her face and freckles look, asking what he did. The boy says he just used that towel, which has a homemade remedy. Marie asks him to show her, and Lloyd reveals it's just an ancient rune, which disappoints her. He apologizes, saying it's nothing impressive, and the only thing he can do is make magnetic rain appear. Marie says that's impossible even to do. Then we see Marie banging her head against the wall, breaking it. Lloyd asks if she's okay. She tells him that from tomorrow, he'll learn common sense. The boy happily says yes. Later, we see Lloyd amazed by the city and overhears a group talking about spies trying to lure monsters into town. The young man says there are many people like him coming from other places, then focuses on doing his first errand well. As Lloyd leaves, a blonde girl in a hood passes by and bumps into a guy with an axe. He asks her if she is the Princess of the Belt. She says yes, and he confirms the rumors are true that the Princess of the Belt wants to join the academy. She ignores him and walks away. The axe-wielding man yells after her, saying she can't ignore him and that she'll risk the nobility's honor by doing this. The Princess of the Belt enters an alley but is attacked by a giant locust. She dodges and draws her sword, but the locust flaps its wings, sending her flying. It attacks again, and Lloyd appears, easily defeating the locust, then throws it away, saying there are many insects in the city. Lloyd approaches the princess and helps her up, then takes out his towel to clean her face. She gets nervous and covers her face with her hood. Lloyd says he has errands to do, and leaves. The princess turns and says her name is Selene. The boy introduces himself and then jumps away across the rooftops. Selene blushes watching him. Later, she hangs her dress and thinks about the boy who helped her. She says she'll put on makeup when she sees him again, but seeing herself in the mirror, she remembers her past. They call her the Princess of the Belt because she was born with a curse, the belt on her face. She always remembers a phrase a priest told her to keep going. While crying, she says she'll remove the belt even if it takes her face off. When she removes it, she notices she's free from the curse and recalls the boy falling to the ground, saying he is her strength and destiny. Later, Lloyd arrives home and Marie praises him for doing the errand well. Lloyd smiles and gives Marie an accessory he bought with the leftover money, and she blushes receiving it. Then Lloyd goes to prepare dinner. The next day, we see a girl observing the new applicants to the military academy and mentioning that there are a lot of them and that they might find some unique candidates. She mentions Meltfan, who says it's all to properly protect the kingdom since their princess is missing, and that their strength is necessary for the military's peace and stability. The girl replies that things might get risky since Raiho Flavin, also known as the one-armed mercenary, is around. Meltfan says that once Raiho gets a good contract, she won't cause trouble anymore. Then they notice the guy with the axe, Alan Toyne Lidocaine, the eldest son of the Lidocaine family, arguing with Selene. Alan tells Selene that if she could take off the belt, she should have done it long ago, since now it's hurting his promotion. The girl comments that he's ambitious, and Meltfan agrees, saying Alan accepted quickly when offered the chance to join. Meanwhile, Selene continues to ignore Alan. On the other hand, we see Riho taking notes on the candidates, commenting that they are just sponsors. Then she notices the presence of the protagonist, Lloyd, saying he's not an ordinary human, he's a monster. Lloyd starts a conversation and tells her her arm is cool. Nervous, Riho gets into a battle stance. Seeing her reaction, Lloyd apologizes and introduces himself. Riho introduces herself too, but at that moment, Selene arrives and slams Riho against the wall, having spotted Lloyd. Selene introduces herself as Selene Haymain and says she is totally devoted to Lloyd. Later on, we get to the combat test, which consists of hitting a metal dummy with any weapon. Riho approaches Meltfan, who asks if she has given up, but she says she's just curious about who that boy is. Meltfan admits he doesn't know either, but finds him interesting. Then he gives Lloyd permission to attack. Meltfan is called away to help elsewhere, since he wanted to see just what Lloyd was capable of. As he leaves, he says that if they accept Lloyd, he'll be a huge asset to the military. The next day, at the academy, Selene and Riho get agitated when they don't see Lloyd in class, even starting to believe he didn't pass the entrance exam, and their desperation only grows when they see Meltfan is confused too. Colin scolds him for being distracted and orders him to hand out flyers to the students. After that, she explains that the kingdom of Azami, the one they live in, is on the verge of war with the Jiu Empire. While Colin continues the explanation, Meltfan stays worried about Lloyd's absence, convinced the country's army is lost without him. Meanwhile, Riho is also unsettled, since she had planned to make a fortune thanks to Lloyd's actions. Back to Colin's explanation. She says that one of their main problems for the past 5 years has been the disappearance of Princess Maria Azami. Anyone who provides helpful information to find her will receive a cash reward, a promotion, and other benefits, plus 1 extra wish within reason. Later, we see Lloyd walking through the city, admitting that he did really badly in the martial arts and written exams, so he's not surprised he didn't pass the test. Disappointed, he comes across a notice board, but a giant cricket attacks him. He easily gets rid of it and goes back to reading the notice. After a while, he ends up at an empty restaurant. When he enters, the owner attacks him by surprise, but Lloyd simply sidesteps. Moving so fast, the owner didn't even see him. The owner, Chrome, only attacked after sensing Lloyd's hidden power, thinking he's there to extract information since Chrome is a former royal guard. But in reality, Lloyd is just looking for a part-time job, so he kindly asks for the position. Chrome reminds him that his place is a tavern, and asks what Lloyd can do. Lloyd replies that he can cook and clean, surprising Chrome. Chrome tells him he'll put his skills to the test, preparing for combat, but Lloyd thinks he's going to cook, so he heads to the kitchen to prepare an exquisite dish. While cooking, Lloyd tells Chrome a bit about what happened, how he failed the exam and was left out of the military academy. Chrome, given what he's seen, thinks Lloyd is lying, though he's actually telling the truth. Lloyd adds that the people from his village gave him an amazing send-off, so he doesn't want to return empty-handed. He's decided to stay in the capital a while longer and try again next year for the academy. Meanwhile, at the academy, Colonel Colin reveals that Lloyd failed the written exam because he just scribbled in his answers. At first, she believed Meltfan, who told her they were ancient runes, so she wasted time researching them. Back to Lloyd, he serves Chrome a tomato and fish risotto, and Chrome is amazed the place didn't burn down. He's still a bit suspicious, but takes the risk and tries the food, even though it leaves him vulnerable to attack. At the same time, Colin mentions that Lloyd's scribbles actually were ancient runes, with which incredible things can be done that normal wizards can't even attempt. Meltfan also mentions he managed to talk to the person who interviewed Lloyd and, through his tactics, got more info out of him. They discover that Lloyd claimed the only magic he knew was how to make it rain. Clearly nobody believed him at first, but since he unconsciously writes ancient runes, he may actually possess a hidden arsenal of spells. On the other hand, Chrome is amazed by how delicious the food is, dropping his suspicions that the young man might be a spy or someone out to harm him. He gives Lloyd the job, though he still plans to keep an eye on him since he can't just leave someone so powerful unchecked. Later, we see Selene suggesting to Colin that they'll find the princess and also asking her to let Lloyd into the academy. Colin likes the idea because she's curious to see how Lloyd uses the ancient runes. Speaking of Lloyd, he returns to Marie and Alka to explain that he couldn't pass the entrance exam, but says he'll try again next year. That's why he asks Marie for permission to stay at her place a bit longer, adding that he found a part-time job to pay rent. Marie and Alka are totally fine with that, so he thanks them and heads off to make dinner. At that moment, Marie is surprised that her teacher accepted Lloyd's presence, and seizing the moment, seriously asks if Lloyd could save the kingdom, explaining the situation. 5 years ago, King Azami became a major proponent of war. There's someone pulling the strings behind him, possibly responsible for declaring war during the upcoming National Foundation Festival, where many officials and foreign dignitaries have been invited. That's where the Jew Empire will start the war, but Marie intends to prevent that. Alka reminds her that, as residents of Kunlun, they shouldn't intervene when a threat is beyond human understanding, insisting it's just a foolish dispute between humans out of pride. Marie understands her stance, which is why 5 years ago she risked her life to learn the Dispel rune from Alka. Recently, she's been going to the central area to find the culprit as soon as possible. Alka warns her not to take things lightly and not to involve Lloyd, or else she'll send him back to Kunlun. With that warning, she leaves, but not before making Marie promise to help Lloyd get admitted to the academy soon. After Alka leaves, Marie calls her lowly granny, which causes a minor mishap, since Alka left her a spell that triggers misfortune if Marie calls her that again. The next day, Riho and Meltfan are at Chrome's tavern, talking about how they've divided the work to help Lloyd get into the academy. Selene will track him down, since she claims they're connected, while Riho and Meltfan search for clues about the missing princess. They also notice that the tavern, once infamous for bad food and being dirty, has become a popular spot for academy students since Lloyd started working there. It's now clean, and the food is delicious. Chrome even brings them food to stop their chatter, and they're blown away by the taste. To their surprise, they learn Lloyd is the cook. Chrome is surprised to find out Meltfan knows Lloyd, so he sends Lloyd outside to take out the trash, giving them a chance to talk privately. Chrome tells Meltfan that while he hired Lloyd for his cooking, he mainly keeps him there to watch him. He's just too powerful. And Chrome doesn't understand why he wasn't accepted into the academy. Meanwhile, outside, Lloyd runs into another giant insect that was attracted by the trash, so he decides to get rid of it and take the garbage somewhere else to burn it. On the way, he sees Marie wandering the streets until she goes into an alley. Lloyd thinks maybe she's out shopping, but when he hears two guys talking about a fight happening on the other side of the alley, he decides to check it out too. At the scene of the commotion, he finds Selene, who is being challenged by Alan, a noble who also entered the academy. Alan is accusing her of trying to force information out of a civilian, but Selene tells him that she'll do whatever it takes to find Lloyd. Alan gets mad and attacks her with his axe. Selene tries to defend herself, but Alan is too fast and manages to get close, yet suddenly the belt Selene wears protects her. Alan is shocked when he loses his weapon mid-fight, while Selene is overjoyed and starts fantasizing about Lloyd, convinced that he enchanted her belt with magic to protect her. At that moment, Lloyd approaches to see what's happening, and Selene spots him, getting super excited. Chrome and the others arrive to see why there's so much commotion in the street. Selene explains about the battle she was having with Alan, lying by saying that Lloyd arrived to protect her, which now puts him in the spot to fight for her. Meltfan decides to let the fight happen, hoping to show Colin Lloyd's abilities. Alan is surprised that two colonels are okay with the fight, but then thinks maybe they want to see his own skills too, so he gets pumped and agrees, convincing Lloyd to duel him. Meltfan actually starts to worry for Alan since even a single punch from Lloyd could be deadly, but thinks Alan, being known for his toughness, might handle it, although he's shocked to learn that Alan actually plans to let Lloyd hit him to show off. Lloyd gets ready to punch Alan in the face, which might have seriously hurt or even killed him, but just then, Marie shows up, creating a big whirlwind to hide herself as she grabs Lloyd and vanishes. Chrome, however, manages to see her for a split second and finds her face familiar. Later on, we see Marie and Lloyd land on a rooftop. As she sets him down, she scolds him for his recklessness, to which Lloyd apologizes and thanks her for saving him, saying he'll do anything to repay her. Marie blushes and tells him not to promise he'll do anything, because bad people like her might use him for evil. The boy tells her she's very kind, and he doesn't think she'd use him for anything bad, smiling at her. Marie gets annoyed and blushes even more. At that moment, Chrome appears. Lloyd and Marie come down, and Chrome asks Lloyd to head back to the tavern. As Lloyd leaves, Chrome kneels before Marie, saying he recognized her because of her wind magic and that he's glad to see she's okay. Since she disappeared after the princess vanished under her care, Chrome left the army. Marie says both of them have been through a lot and tells him about what's happening with the king. She explains that the festival is in 3 days, and that's when whoever is controlling the king plans to declare war on Jew. Chrome asks Marie if she knows who's behind it, but she says she doesn't and wants his help to find out. Later, we see Methrophon working on some paperwork when Colin arrives, asking if he's still reviewing training. He replies that he does it for the peace of the kingdom. Colin asks why he works so hard, and he explains that long ago, a city suffered from famine and extreme poverty, and the Jew army took advantage by attacking and looting what little they had. Since then, he vowed not to let that happen again. The next day, we see Selene and Riho searching for information about the princess. Selene is worried because, after what happened yesterday, she hasn't seen Lloyd again. Riho reassures her, saying that she and Lloyd are lovers and they'll see each other again. Selene blushes and agrees, saying fate brought them together. They decide to go to Marie's house to try and buy information about the princess. When they arrive and knock, they're surprised when Lloyd answers the door and invites them in. Riho asks Selene if she didn't know Lloyd was staying at Marie's house, since she thought they were lovers. Selene insists they are. They've been lovers for a week. Lloyd brings them coffee and tells them to be careful because it's hot. Selene says she'll be careful. Riho looks at her and says she fell in love because Lloyd freed her from her belt with his powers, and Selene believes fate brought them together, saying she'd never dare face a monster like him. Marie arrives and asks Lloyd for a beer, which he says he'll bring in a moment. Marie lays down on the sofa, ignoring Lloyd's friends, but then notices the visitors. Lloyd introduces them, explaining they came to buy some information from Marie. Riho, seeing Marie, thinks she looks familiar. They sit down to talk. Riho shows her a picture and tells her they want information on that person. Seeing the picture, Marie gets nervous and says she doesn't give out info about missing princesses. Riho points out she never mentioned it was a princess, which makes Marie even more nervous. She thinks they've figured her out. Selene interrupts by asking how long Marie has lived here. Marie says 2 years. Selene starts crying. Seeing her, Marie decides to tell the truth and says she won't run anymore. Then both Marie and Selene speak at the same time. Marie says she's the princess, and Selene says she's Lloyd's wife. Marie changes the subject, saying no, that Lloyd is like a nephew to her. Riho asks if it's true that she's the princess, since she just said so. Marie denies saying it. Riho looks at her and asks why she's denying it. Selene pleads for help, saying that if they find the princess, the Academy will accept Lloyd. Marie smiles when she sees it's all to help Lloyd, so she suggests exchanging information. She asks them for any tidbit about the king's castle, saying even the smallest detail would help her a lot. They ask her first to reveal who she really is. She says they should have figured it out already. Just then, Lloyd arrives and says he also knows who she is, saying she's the heroic savior since she helped him escape with her wind magic and later went down a dark alley where, after a while, they defeated a monster. He asks her to let him help rescue the kingdom. Marie admits he figured it out, saying she is the hero, but she can't let him help because he's too weak for that. But Lloyd insists he'll do whatever it takes and give it his all, since he wants to be a great soldier. Marie tells him that's enough. When he hears her, Lloyd gets sad, apologizes for asking too much, and leaves. As he goes, Marie asks Selene and Riho to help her, in the name of the princess, revealing her identity as Marie Azami, princess of the Azami kingdom. Riho asks her to explain why she treated Lloyd that way. She explains that Lloyd comes from the village of Kunlun, and that the villagers are forbidden from getting involved in human conflicts. Riho realizes that's why the boy is so terrifyingly strong, and if he gets involved in this conflict, they'd make him return to his village, and his dreams would be crushed. That's why she needs their help, because someone controlling the king has ordered a massive manhunt and wants her brought in dead or alive. Selene and Riho understand the situation and say they'll help her. On the other hand, we see Lloyd looking at a book cover and wondering if he'll ever become a great soldier if he keeps going like this. Later, we see Marie on the roof, thinking that now she has the Dispel rune. She can free her father from the spell. Suddenly, Alka appears behind her, scaring her. Alka says she's glad Marie is keeping Lloyd away from trouble, but asks why she threw the crystal into a well. Marie gets nervous and says she didn't mean to. Alka tells her she isn't mad, but she cast a spell on her. Every time she finishes a sentence, she has to say, meow. Alka dries off and says she'll take Lloyd on a date during the festival. The next day, we see Selene and Riho gathering information from the kingdom's citizens. They grab a guy who tells them he wasn't ordered to look for the princess but always heard a certain phrase. Riho asks what phrase, and the guy says, for the peace of the kingdom. That night, we see Alka and Lloyd strolling through the festival. She sees the protagonist looking down, so she tries to cheer him up, but nothing works. Then she says she has chocolate bananas. Lloyd looks at her and asks what she'll do, and she says she's got the chocolate and he's got the banana, lunging at him. But at that moment, they hear people screaming and see a group of giant locusts attacking the festival. Meanwhile, we see Methraphon, Chrome, and the king. Chrome asks the king to let him back into the army. Methraphon says they have no problem with it. Chrome asks if he's sure, since he met with the princess and she wants to work with him to prevent the king from starting a war with the Jiu Empire. Chrome then asks Meltfan whether he's responsible for sending soldiers after the princess dead or alive, since when they questioned a citizen, they heard the phrase, for the peace of the kingdom, and the only one known to use that phrase is him. Just then, Riho, Selene, and Princess Marie arrive. The king reacts and says Meltfan never controlled him. He knocks him away and reveals he destroyed his own village to create despair and be freed. He walks up to Meltfan and turns him into a human insect, who attacks the princess but is stopped by Riho. He tells the princess to go after the king, and Marie heads after him, while Riho, Selene, and Chrome stays behind to fight against Meltfan. Marie reaches the king and says that she will get her father back, so she attacks whoever is controlling him while trying to get closer. Marie uses several spells, but the king repels them as if they're nothing. When she finally thinks she's close enough and tries to touch him, he distracts her by pretending to be her father and sends her flying. On the ground, Marie sees him approaching, and he tells her she was close, then grabs one of her arms and breaks it. That's when we discover that the one controlling the king is the demon Abaddon, who wants to take control of the entire world, and that's why he has to kill Marie. Hearing this, Marie is shocked to realize he's a demon. On the other hand, we see how Lloyd easily defeats the locusts at the festival. Alka, seeing them, gets angry for ruining her date. Lloyd senses that Marie is in danger, so he tells Alka that he has to go help her and that he'll be back soon. Alka asks if he'll be able to do it on his own. He says he doesn't know, but he'll try. Back with Marie, she gets angry because the demon didn't say he was a demon king, since she remembered Alka told her that if the threat is a demon king, the citizens of Kunlun village are actually allowed to help. Marie runs away while the demon chases her, telling her not to run. Meanwhile, we see Lloyd heading toward the castle and running into Alan, who is scared because of the locusts. Alan apologizes for being a coward and says he doesn't deserve to be a soldier. Lloyd says that's not true, that Alan is a great soldier, and that he's not a coward. Monsters are just terrifying. Just then, a locust appears behind him. Alan warns him. and Lloyd easily defeats it, saying it's an important conversation. Lloyd says goodbye and tells Alan he is strong. While running, Alan bumps into a girl in an alley, and she's being attacked by a locust. Seeing this, Alan gathers his courage and attacks the locust, defeating it in one hit. Alan looks up at the sky, relieved, and notices a huge magic circle, wondering what it is. We see Alka, who says that since it's a demon king, she won't hold back because they ruined her date, and she starts launching several small meteors at the locusts. Meanwhile, Chrome, Riho, and Selen are still fighting against Meltfan. He easily defeats Chrome and Riho. Selen decides to let herself get captured so her boy can rescue her half-naked, but the belt repels all of Meltfan's attacks. Riho, seeing this, decides to take the opportunity to go look for Lloyd, and when she steps outside, she runs into him. She explains the situation, and when they go back inside, Lloyd notices that a soldier is attacking the citizens instead of protecting them. Meltfan doesn't listen and attacks him. Lloyd tries to talk sense into him. Meltfan comes to his senses and starts crying, saying he just wants peace. Lloyd smiles and says that the other day he drank too much, and that's really bad for a soldier, scolding Chrome as well. Meltfan loses consciousness again and attacks Lloyd, who dodges easily and gives him a headbutt that sends Meltfan flying and defeats him easily, leaving everyone impressed. Lloyd asks about Marie. They tell him she went to face the king on her own and hasn't returned. Lloyd tries to go look for her, but suddenly Marie appears. Lloyd apologizes, saying he shouldn't have left, and Marie hugs him, saying she's glad he's here. Lloyd looks at her, but then the demon king Abaddon appears, saying she shouldn't have run from him. Lloyd approaches and tells him it's dangerous to be here, asks if he's drunk too, and why he's so dirty. Marie jumps in and says he is drunk and dirty and should get cleaned up with his trick. Lloyd agrees, uses an ancient rune on a towel, and slowly gets closer to the demon king. The demon tries to push him away, but Lloyd insists and starts cleaning him. Marie says as a parting gift, that's what he gets for messing with the royal family and playing with humans. Before disappearing, the Demon King says that phrase is ridiculous. Marie sighs, saying it's finally over. Lloyd approaches and heals Marie's hand. She hugs him and thanks him for saving her. Selen tells her to move aside and asks her to explain what happened with the promise that Lloyd wouldn't get involved. The next day, we see Lloyd happy that the festival ended well. Then he reunites with his brother Shoma. Lloyd is glad to see him and asks what he's doing there. Shoma says he just came to deliver some goods to a few festival booths. He also congratulates Lloyd for how much he's grown and for defeating the Demon King Abaddon, gazing at him seriously for a moment. Then Alka appears, saying she brought him chocolate bananas and apologizing for taking so long. Lloyd says it's okay since he ran into Shoma. Alka asks if Shoma was really here, and Lloyd says yes. He was just there a moment ago but already left. Meanwhile, we see Chrome with Colin, talking about Meltfan. Since his punishment was to help out in the village of Kunlun, they put him to work hunting and harvesting wheat. Meltfan realizes that the one who distributed supplies during the famine was Alka. Then we see Alka return to where Lloyd is, entering the room and seeing him half-dressed. Marie stops her and takes her out of the room, saying she'd like to see Lloyd dressed in his uniform. Later, Lloyd comes out already changed. When they see him, they comment that he looks good. Alka asks if Marie is going to govern again, but she says no, since her father will recover soon and can do it himself. Just then, Selen and Riho arrive looking for Lloyd. Alka eyes them to see who they are, and Lloyd introduces them, sparking a rivalry between Alka and Selen over Lloyd. Alka tries to cast a curse, but Selen's belt blocks it. Selen asks what Alka was trying to do, and Alka says she just wanted to cast a small curse to make her butt hurt. Selen says it's too bad, since the belt blocks anything aimed at her. Then Alan arrives. He's the one who suggested Lloyd should join the academy. They all start arguing. Marie gets angry and tosses Alka through the portal to send her back, telling everyone else to head to the academy before it gets too late. Lloyd and his friends then leave for the academy. At night, we see Chrome driving a carriage with Marie and Lloyd, who are heading to a place where a sacred sword is on display. When they arrive, Lloyd starts picking everything up, and Marie mentions that only people with a great deal of magical power can pull out that sword. Then, we see Lloyd effortlessly pull out the sword and put it in a bag. Later, Chrome is driving them back to the kingdom, and Lloyd asks him what they'll do with the sword. Marie says the mayor will probably make a replica and claim it was pulled out by a great knight. Then she pats Chrome on the shoulder and says she's counting on him. The next day, we see Lloyd at the academy enjoying his training. Later, in the classroom, his teacher Colin enters and announces that she'll select candidates to compete against the Rakuju Magic Academy. They wonder what that is, and Alan explains it's an annual event. Later, we see the group on the training field as Colin explains the 3 types of magic: chants, spoken spells, sigils written with runes, and conduits, using magic staffs or stones. Colin tells them they'll need to train since each type has weaknesses. During all the tests, Lloyd stands out. Selene goes up to Colin and asks her to teach her healing magic, wanting to be able to heal people who are wounded or at their limit. Rio says healing magic would also be great when they're in a group, and she'd like to learn too. Alan arrives and says that healing magic isn't so hard to learn, so why don't they start now? Then Lloyd says he also wants to learn. Colin agrees, but says they need someone to practice on. Selene says she already has a candidate, then kicks Alan. He asks what she's doing as he falls to the ground. Colin congratulates Selene and tells Alan it'll be good for him, and anything they do won't hurt because they'll be healing him. Meanwhile, we see Marie having coffee but noticing someone is watching her. Marie asks, "Who is it?" And another girl enters saying they're customers coming for information, introducing themselves as Mina and Philo Kinone, the mercenary sisters from Rakuju. Marie asks what they want. They show her a photo. Marie sees it's Riho. Mina asks if she knows her, but then Philo senses Lloyd's presence and gets ready to attack. When Lloyd enters, he gets kicked in the head. After he falls, she kicks him in the side, but Lloyd doesn't react. He thinks she just wanted to kill a fly and apologizes. Then he notices the photo of Riho and asks if they know her. Mina says yes. Lloyd says yes too, since she's a student with him. Philo approaches and asks Lloyd to make her his apprentice. He says he can't, since it's Marie's house, so Philo approaches Marie and asks her. Marie says yes, but Philo starts undressing Lloyd. Marie sees this, kicks them out, and throws salt at them. Then we see Lloyd complaining because it seems like Philo broke his rib. Marie is amazed by that girl's strength and tells Lloyd she'll heal him. Lloyd says no, he'll be as good as new in 3 hours. Marie starts fantasizing about Lloyd, but then Alka appears and asks if she went to the Sword Village. Marie says yes, it was for work. Alka then asks if she gave Lloyd a taste. Marie says yes, but as she answers, she's turned into a butterfly. Lloyd hears the noise, goes to see what's happening, and asks about Marie. Alka says she's around there and tells them to keep preparing dinner. That night, Marie returns to normal and curses Alka for turning her into a butterfly. Lloyd sees her naked and ignores her. Marie gets dressed, cries, and lies on the floor saying she's going to sleep. The next day at the academy, while the group trains, Chrome watches them from afar and says he's preparing a surprise. Riho approaches Colin and asks why she's so eager to win. Colin says it's because of the Snake Lady, the headmistress of Rakuju Academy, whom she hates. That woman shows up and asks if they're talking about her. Colin looks at her and calls her Roll. Colin asks what she's doing there since the matches are still far off. Roll goes over to Riho and greets her, saying she's glad Riho's arm is okay, and that she's doing well too, warning her that she should come back to the academy or she'll lose something even more important. Selene approaches Colin and asks who she is. Colin says she's Roll Kalsif, her former classmate, who made enemies with everyone at the academy until she ended up as its headmistress. Rio says they'll settle things in the matches. Roll leaves, saying she's looking forward to them. Philo approaches Lloyd, takes his hand, and says she'll be waiting for his answer too. Selene pulls them apart and asks who Philo is. Philo leaves, and Lloyd explains to Selene that Philo wants to live with them. Selene gets jealous. Over several days, Lloyd notices Riho is sad. At home, he makes dinner, and Marie says everything is delicious. Lloyd, looking down, says thanks. He tells Marie he wants to cheer up a girl. Marie tells him to invite her on a date, thinking it's her, but she's disappointed when Lloyd actually invites Riho. Marie tells him that's fine. The next day, Selene and Alan try to cheer up Riho, but she ignores Selene and punches Alan. Then Lloyd approaches and asks Riho to go on a date. We see Riho and Lloyd at a cafe eating donuts. Lloyd asks Riho to tell him what's wrong. He says they're friends, and she can count on him. Meanwhile, Selene watches them from the window and tries to enter, but Alan tells her there's a giant cockroach. Hearing that, Selene punches Alan and sends him flying, then heads into the cafe. Rio tells Lloyd what happened, saying that she and Roll have known each other since they were kids in the same orphanage. She explains that after a while, Roll showed up with an arm, decided to make money, but it wasn't easy and she committed crimes and kept running to avoid getting caught. Lloyd takes her hand and asks her not to run away but to stay with them at the academy. Then, Selene arrives and asks why Riho never told her before, saying the academy would be boring if she left. Riho smiles and is happy to have them as friends. The next day, everyone is ready for the matches. matches. A second-year group led by Makona Zol arrives. Makona says she'll be better than Lloyd and will fight first. We see Makona getting ready to battle Philo. Makona starts charging her magic while Philo prepares hers. Makona charges, but Philo defeats her in one blow. Lloyd approaches to help her up, but she refuses, saying not to underestimate her. Later, Makona goes to Marie's house to be healed, blushing and happy that Marie is taking care of her and is so close. Lloyd arrives and greets Makona. Marie asks if they know each other, and Lloyd says yes, they met during the practice matches. Marie asks what Lloyd will make for dinner, and he says it's a secret. When Makona sees how well Marie gets along with Lloyd, she leaves. The next day, the inter-school matches are finally announced. Raul asks Riho if she's decided. Riho says she'll defeat Raul and finally be free from her. Chrome announces that whoever wins the tournament will receive the Sacred Sword, surprising both Raul and Riho. Rio asks Chrome why the Sacred Sword is involved, but he doesn't say anything. Colin asks what the Sacred Sword has to do with it. Selin steps in and explains about Riho's arm. Raul says that in that case, a new student will participate, and Colin says then they'll put Lloyd in. Before leaving, Raul says she'll be ready to kill for the sword. Riho approaches Colin and asks her to teach her healing magic. Meanwhile, Marie and Alka are fighting over who gets to go see Lloyd. Alka, giving up, puts a curse on Marie so she can't go either. Back with Lloyd, they announce the matches. It'll be 1 versus 1, and the first team to win twice is the winner. Raul says using Lloyd is very last minute, but Selene says they'll show her what improvising really is, and so, the first match between Selene and Folly begins. Selene, seeing Folly, says she's going to win. The match starts, and Selene feels confident because she believes the belt will protect her. The belt reacts and starts blocking Folly's attacks, but Selene gets disqualified because no companions are allowed. The next match is Lloyd versus Mina. She attacks him with water magic, but it does nothing to Lloyd. He then counterattacks and easily defeats her. Folly goes to her sister and carries her, saying Lloyd is strong. The last match is Roll versus Riho, where the winning academy will be decided. At the start, they both throw fireballs, but Roll creates a distraction and gets close, managing to remove Riho's mithril arm. Raul tells Riho to give up, saying she can't do much without her arm, but Riho smiles, punches her, and at the same time activates a fireball spell that hits Raul in the face. Riho explains that before the match, she embedded a magic stone in her skin and healed the wound. Raul looks at her arm and realizes her wound is healing, surprised that she can't use her other arm against her. Terrified by the things Riho then threatens to do, Raul faints in fear, giving the military academy and Riho the win. Later, we see Raul wants more power and gets it with the sacred sword. When she wakes up, another student tells her the sword is now in Lloyd's care, that it was Marie who originally obtained the sword, and that she lives with a younger brother. Hearing this, Raul asks Folly to go after the younger brother and leave this note. Folly goes and sees Marie begging a sphere to remove her curse. Believing that the sphere is important, Folly sneaks in while Marie is in the bathroom, takes the sphere, and leaves the note. Lloyd arrives home and sees the note, then Alan shows up. Lloyd tells him Marie was kidnapped and they're demanding the sword in exchange for her, so Lloyd and Alan head to the exchange spot. Raul looks at what Folly brought and says she shouldn't have sent her. She tells them Lloyd is coming. Folly goes down to challenge him, saying they'll fight to the death. Lloyd agrees, but only if Folly tells him where Marie is. Folly accepts. Lloyd thinks about how to beat her without hurting her and decides on an arm wrestling match. While they wrestle, Alan hides with the sacred sword, but gets attacked by the man who gives information to Raul, trying to take the sword. Then Mayne arrives and defeats that guy because he said bad things about her sister. Meanwhile, Folly and Lloyd keep wrestling. Lloyd uses his wind magic and defeats Folly. Folly accepts defeat and asks Lloyd to marry her. Meanwhile, Alka appears and asks Raul about Lloyd. Raul asks who she is, but Alka ignores her and just repeats the question for Lloyd. Raul gets mad and insults her, so Alka gets angry and sends Raul flying with fire magic. Alan, seeing her fall into the sea, hands the sword to Lloyd and goes to rescue Raul. Folly tells Mayne that she knows who she's going to marry. The next day, we see an old man healing all of Raul's injuries. Raul dreams about the moment when Riho was waiting for her while peeling apples, and also remembers how Riho promised to rebuild the orphanage and take care of the kids together. When she wakes up, she sees Riho peeling an apple and placing it on a plate, cut into pieces. Raul smiles and says that she's gotten better at peeling apples. At night, we see the Quinoa sisters find a lost boy in the forest who seems to be unconscious. They say that afterward they'll go eat steak in the kingdom. In the background, we see a lake and a mansion. The next day at the military academy, Riho tries to ask Lloyd out on a date since vacation is coming up and they'll have lots of free time, but she gets interrupted by Selene. Selene says she'll have to go back to her parents' house and plans to accidentally set it on fire so she can stay with Lloyd and have a date. Lloyd says he'd be happy to go on a date with Selene. She says if he wants a date, she'll want to marry him too. Then Selene asks Riho what her intentions are in going out with Lloyd. Riho says she just wants a friendly date, nothing more. Alan then mentions that he has a marriage interview today and will attend, but Selene and Riho drag Lloyd away, ignoring Alan. Later, Lloyd returns home and sees Alka and Marie arguing. He tells them he'll be working part-time during vacation and will live there. A short-term job Chrome found him at a big hotel. When Marie and Alka hear this, they also want to get jobs at that hotel, but Lloyd tells them not to because when they're around him, trouble happens. The next day, we see a bald, scarred man waiting for the part-timer. He feels a strong presence behind him, but it's just Lloyd. Lloyd arrives, apologizes for the delay, and introduces himself. The man stands up and introduces himself as Koba Lamine, the hotel owner. Koba shows him the hotel and says he used to be part of the Royal Guard, telling Lloyd about his adventures. When they reach the baths, they meet Kikyu, Lloyd's senior employee. Kikyu gives Lloyd a broom and tells him to clean the baths. Lloyd asks if he's doing it alone, and Kikyu says yes, since she's too tired, but Lloyd finishes quickly and tells her he's done. Kikyu turns around, amazed at how fast he finished the job. When Koba arrives, she asks who Lloyd is, and Koba says it's a secret. Koba then tells Lloyd that tomorrow a client will arrive that he'll personally attend to since he's not good with nobles, especially strict ones. The next day, Koba welcomes Threonine, who tells Koba he gets the feeling Koba didn't want him to come. Threonine then notices Lloyd and asks what he thinks of the trees in the forest behind the lake. Lloyd says they're nice, but kind of a waste, since they were planted long ago and the area would make a great resort. Threonine likes Lloyd's idea and gets along with him. Later that night, Threonine is still awake when Kikyu arrives. Threonine asks if she's found any info about the other victim found in the forest. Kikyu says they have no info at all. Threonine says they wouldn't give themselves away so easily. Kikyu asks if he's sure they're cultivating Trents here. Threonine says it's most likely, since Koba, being a war-loving ex-soldier, might let the forest become a Trent dungeon if it's not designated a national forest. That's why he had to involve his son to get more info and take action. He also mentions that a young Trent called Demon Lord Seedling was stolen from the Monster Research Lab, and that this plant acts like a parasite. It can live in any animal or human and give them incredible powers. Kikyu then recalls Lloyd's feats and Threonine asks who he is. She says he's a young man who was just hired today. Threonine gives her a vial with a liquid that will expel the treant. Kikyu goes to where Lloyd is and sees him cutting vegetables, thinking to herself that he's not human. She approaches to offer him some tea with the liquid Threonine gave her. Just then, the bald guy arrives and tells Lloyd to go rest, taking the tea for himself. Since she's caught, Kikyu decides to leave, and the bald guy decides to get to the bottom of everything since it's odd that Kikyu only acts that way when Threonine is at the hotel. The next day, we see Riho, who's staying at the hotel where Lloyd works. She calls the front desk and asks for a massage. Lloyd goes up to the room for the massage and is surprised to find Riho there. Riho doesn't want Lloyd to give her the massage, but then they hear a scream. Meanwhile, Selene and her father arrive at the hotel where Lloyd works, since they're there for a marriage arrangement. They dress Selene up properly, but when she sees she's supposed to marry Alan, she absolutely refuses. Her father tells her she has no choice. It's for the good of the family. At the meeting, Selene is plotting how to kill Alan, but when someone walks in, she prepares to attack only to realize it's Lloyd, so she jumps on him and drags him out, leaving her father and Threonine to talk. In a private spot, Selene asks what he's doing there, and Lloyd replies that it's his part-time job, and Threonine asked him to pretend to be Alan since they found Alan unconscious in the pool. Then Riho arrives and tells them to pretend to be hotel staff so they can investigate what's going on, since everything seems so odd. Selene mentions that she and Lloyd are in a marriage meeting, so they could use it as an excuse to go on a date and investigate deeper around the forest, to which Lloyd agrees, saying it's not a bad idea. Later, we see Lloyd and Selene by the lake, pretending to be a normal couple. Riho shows up, hitting Selene and saying she's not acting like a normal girlfriend. Elsewhere, Koba is trying to figure out what Threonine has planned, since he arranged for a marriage substitute. Back with Lloyd, he's talking with Riho and Selene about their act as a couple. Riho doesn't think it's working because Selene doesn't act normal. Then Shoma appears with a load of explosives made from magic stones. Riho asks Selene if she ordered them, but Selene plays dumb and acts scared. Lloyd takes the chance to introduce his friends to his brother, Shoma, who says it's nice to meet them, but has to go, leaving everything with Riho. After a while, Riho asks what they're going to do with all those explosives. Selene tells her to take care of it herself. She and Lloyd are going to investigate, leaving Riho alone. We then see Lloyd and Selene enjoying themselves while investigating, even taking a boat ride on the lake. Selene thanks Lloyd because, thanks to him, her belt's curse was broken. Before that, she couldn't be happy, but now she can, and that's why she fell in love with him. Lloyd says that, unless he helps people, he won't be a true knight. He feels like he hasn't helped that many people yet. Selene tells him he has, but he just hasn't noticed. Later, Kikyu approaches Lloyd while Selene is gone, taking advantage of him being alone. Lloyd happily greets her and asks if she needs anything. She says she'll give him a massage for his hard work. Lloyd gets flustered and asks her to teach him. Kikyu then starts massaging him while trying to find where the Trent plant is. She realizes it isn't in his upper body, so she wonders if it's down there and decides to reach for it. At that moment, Selene shows up and attacks Kikyu for taking advantage of her fiancé. Kikyu dodges Selene's attacks and counterattacks, but Selene defends herself and keeps attacking. Lloyd distracts them, letting Kikyu escape. Later, we see Lloyd in the hot springs. Then Riho and Selene show up, followed by Alka and Marie. Lloyd is shocked and asks what they're doing there, but they're interrupted by Manet and Folly, who all end up bathing together. Marie asks Manet what they're doing there. Manet says they're investigating the Trents since a troublesome seedling was stolen. Alka says if they don't do something soon, the whole hotel could be in danger since someone there might be infected with the seedling. Lloyd stands up, saying they need to hurry. All the girls are amazed at the sight of Lloyd's private parts. Folly notices they're being watched and grabs Alka by the hair, tossing her toward the watcher, who turns out to be Kikyu. Upon being discovered, Kikyu wonders how best to investigate Lloyd. Just then, Threonine's secretary, the host of the seedling who's been infesting the forest, appears. He transforms, traps Kikyu, and steals her energy. The secretary says he'll rule the world, beginning with the hotel. Lloyd then appears, compliments his disguise, and says that if he's going to the hotel like that, Kikyu should scold him. The secretary gets mad, turns into the demon king of the Trents, and summons trees to attack Lloyd, but the secretary heads toward the hotel. Meanwhile, Koba, Threonine, and Selene's father are arguing about illegal Trent plantations, trying to find someone to blame, but they realize someone is missing. It's the secretary. He appears before them, says his name is Minoki, and that he's tired of Threonine's arrogance. He attacks, but his attacks are blocked by Selene and the others. Marie tells everyone not to fight in the hotel and to take the battle elsewhere. Folly handles it by punching Minoki and moving him away a bit. Then Mane uses her fire magic to distract him. Riho gets the idea to use the bombs, so she wakes up Alan to help her. They start throwing bombs at Minoki, dealing some damage. Mane uses her water magic to create a dragon, and Riho freezes it, stopping Minoki for a while. Selene gets distracted and her father saves her from falling debris, but he's trapped. Selene tries to help him but sees more rubble about to fall. Just then, Lloyd arrives and saves them. Lloyd goes to Marie and asks what's going on. She says the monster's core is its eye and he needs to destroy it. Lloyd takes over, effortlessly dodges the monster's attacks, and destroys the core, easily defeating Minoki. Meanwhile, we see Shoma feeling proud that Lloyd is so strong. We also see Alka buried. She finds out that Shoma was making plans with that guy. Shoma tells her not to worry and that they'll meet again, then leaves. The next day, the bald guy thanks Threonine for the hotel repairs and hopes for more help in the future. Threonine says it's just a small way to make up for what her secretary did and leaves Kikyu in charge. Selene's father apologizes for arranging her marriage and lets her marry whoever she wishes. He also asks Lloyd to take care of his daughter. Alka says she's exhausted from all the recovery magic she used to fix the hotel. Lloyd offers to give her a massage he learned yesterday. Alka agrees, but instead of a massage, he puts her in a hold and throws her to the floor. On the other hand, we see Shoma bringing Makona to the old man who healed Roll. Shoma says this person lost his beloved. The old man asks Makona what she thinks of him when she sees him. She says he looks like a priest. They give her some Trent blood and pills. Without hesitation, Makona takes them and transforms into a bug-like humanoid, declaring that with this new power she'll be able to kill Lloyd. The next day, we see Marie asking Lloyd to feed her. He agrees, But then Selene, Riho, and Folly show up and tell him they have to go to the castle because the king ordered them to hunt a giant serpent in a nearby dungeon. Marie is worried since her father keeps sending Lloyd on dangerous jobs. Later, we see Lloyd with his teacher, Chrome, and friends, all waiting for the king. The king arrives acting like a rock star, playing a guitar. Chrome grabs his outfit and asks what's going on. The king says he read in a book that if people are nervous, making a joke can help ease the tension. After that, Colin explains the location and levels of the monsters in that zone. Meanwhile, Shoma is having coffee with the old man, who tells him there's a dungeon not far from here and that several hunters are being sent there. Shoma asks if this is what he's been searching for these last 10 years. The old man says yes, and he'll get to it before anyone else, then leaves. Alka shows up, saying she's late and trying to figure out what Shoma's planning. Back with Lloyd, he's already at the dungeon entrance with his friends. Selene, Riho, and Folly argue over who will go in with Lloyd and ask Alan for his opinion, but he just says he'll be the guard. Marie worries about Lloyd, and Alka shows up asking if there's a dungeon nearby since someone she knows is heading there and she wants directions. She grabs Marie by the arm and flies off with her. Inside the dungeon, we see Lloyd and the girls. Folly stops the others and asks Riho if she's in love with Lloyd. Selene wants to know too since Riho asked Lloyd for a date and a massage. They take her aside to interrogate her, but they hear strange noises. Lloyd hears them too and thinks it's the serpent, so he heads that way, only to find it's Alka and Marie, who destroyed the ceiling to get in unnoticed. Alka goes off to explore, leaving Marie on her own. As Marie walks, she runs into a Trent holding Makona. Makona looks at her and says she's waiting for the person who stole her beloved to take revenge. So she captures Marie but says she won't hurt her. Lloyd arrives to rescue Marie. Makona starts attacking, saying she'll kill him for taking her love. Lloyd defends himself and tries to ask why she's attacking and why she won't free Marie. After hitting him several times, Makona says a normal human wouldn't survive that, and that Marie is her beloved, so she won't let him take her away again. Lloyd says he's not a normal human. He's from the village of Kunlun. Makona explodes with rage, saying that village is just a fairy tale. Meanwhile, Riho, Selene, and Folly run to where Lloyd is fighting Makona. Seeing them, Makona attacks, but Lloyd protects them, getting wounded and using all his strength. They notice the dungeon starting to collapse and try to escape, but the floor gives way and they fall. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Makona keep fighting. Makona throws Lloyd against the ground and then attacks with her arm. Lloyd takes the hit, grabs her arm, spins her around, and sends her flying through several floors and the dungeon ceiling. They congratulate Lloyd for defeating Makona, but then a huge serpent appears, Vritra, who knows Lloyd since she's a guardian beast of Kunlun. Vritra is upset because Alka sealed her away and exiled her from the Kunlun guardian beasts, and she also wonders who that person they defeated was. Marie, seeing the situation, asks who implanted Trents in Makona. The old man appears, admits he was responsible, and asks Lloyd what he sees when he looks at him. Lloyd replies that he sees a bad person. The old man is surprised, asking if Lloyd aspires to be a hero, an unattainable hero who protects all humans. At that moment, Alka arrives, saying she finally found Sue. Sue says it's nice to see familiar faces. Alka notices Vritra and asks what she's doing there. Vritra is angry, saying Alka is the one who put her there. Sue takes the chance to enter Vritra's core and kills her. Sue says that now Vritra is dead, Alka's powers are gone, but Alka punches him hard. He's shocked she still has her powers, but then Selene's belt starts talking, saying Vritra isn't dead yet. Sue is stunned, realizing Alka planned a way to keep her powers even if Vritra died, so he decides to leave and rethink his plans. Then Alan calls for everyone because the dungeon is collapsing, so they all have to get out. Alka uses her crystal to escape with everyone. Back at the royal palace, Alan is praised for his bravery and determination in the dungeon. The king offers him a reward, but Alan turns it down, saying he didn't do anything. Still, the king gives him the title of Dragon Slayer. Meanwhile, Lloyd thinks about Sue, since that's the name of the main character in his book. Marie and the other girls get ready to celebrate Lloyd's victory, but Alka shows up and says she's taking Selene to Kunlun village. The next day, the king is informed about an exhibition match between Azami and Jiu. The king decides they'll send their best fighter, since relations have cooled off a bit, so he'll send a legendary guy. Chrome wonders who that could be. Meanwhile, Alka, along with Lloyd's friends and Marie, head to a portal that will take them to Kunlun so they can revive Vritri. Colin and Chrome also come along. Marie asks if they don't have a lot to do at the castle, but they say no, since Mina is handling the preparations for the exhibition match, and the fighter will be Alan. After a while, they arrive at a cave, and inside, they see a portal that will take them to Kunlun. Suddenly, a girl named Yug appears, who is dwarf royalty. Everyone is amazed because it's their first time meeting a dwarf, especially one from royalty. Yug also mentions she's hundreds of years old. Marie tells her she's the same age as Alka, and Yug gets mad, telling Marie not to compare her to that reincarnation of idiocy. After a bit, the portal is ready, and Yug sends them to Kunlun. When they arrive, Riho and Chrome thought Kunlun would be scarier, but it's just a normal village. Marie warns them not to be scared once they reach the village. When they arrive, they're overwhelmed by how everyone is as strong as Lloyd. The people also communicate using arrows and rocks wrapped in paper, and they see people traveling around by cannon. Meanwhile, Chrome and Colin run into Meltfan and ask why he hasn't returned to the academy. He says he likes life in the village and is working on improving himself. Meanwhile, Lloyd arrives home, greeting his grandfather and younger brother, Gore and Kuman. When Selin meets Lloyd's family, she takes the chance to introduce herself and hand them a form so she can marry Lloyd. Just then, there's a lot of noise outside, and Alka goes to check it out. They say it's a flying lizard. Riho goes out to handle it, but realizes it's a dragon and starts running away. Some kids go outside, throw paper airplanes with Selin's papers at the dragon, scare it, and cut off one of its horns. They bring the horn home. Later, everyone gathers for a family dinner. Folly had gone to train with a man and tells Rio and Selin that she learned a lot and hopes to be as strong as Lloyd. The man says he only taught her the basics, and Folly is impressed. They say thanks and start dinner. After dinner, Lloyd's family says goodbye and asks him who his girlfriend is. He says he doesn't have one, so they suggest he marry Riho, or Folly. Selin, noticing that she wasn't mentioned, thinks she needs to find a way to get noticed, so she asks Vritri to help her. Vritri suggests she learns transformation magic. Yuji shows up and says it's not a bad idea, and offers to transform Vritri into an ogre. Later, Riho, Folly, and Selene argue because Riho got expensive sleepwear and they didn't. When Selene finds out it's valuable, she strips naked and puts it away to sell later. Lloyd walks in and sees Riho naked, and Folly immediately sends him flying. Meanwhile, Meltfan apologizes to Marie. She tells him it's not necessary and asks him to stand up, then asks for information about how a demon king possessed her father. He says he met a merchant who gave him an egg, took it to the king, and it turned into that thing. After that, he just followed orders and stopped caring. Marie asks what else the merchant said, and Meltfan tells her he always mentioned a phrase was, "What do I look like to you?" When Marie hears it, she says she's heard that somewhere before. The next day, Lloyd and the others head out to resurrect Vritri. Alka complains that it's too early for Vritri to wake up, but Vritri reminds her that Alka is the reason she died and must bring her back. After a while, they finally arrive at the last dungeon. When they get there, Riho thinks they'll find treasures and more, but gets disappointed upon hearing that only weird things are inside, that it's not a normal dungeon, and only very experienced people can enter because it manipulates the human brain. Yuji asks Selin for the belt and starts cooking it to revive Vritri, then seals it in a capsule and approaches Alka to punch her. Alka realizes she hurt her, but Yug says Vritri is already revived and she'll release her back where she was. Everyone is happy to hear Vritri is okay. Yug asks about the sacred sword. They tell her it's at Azami's castle. Yug smiles and says that's good, since the sword is the key to the last dungeon, and if it falls into the wrong hands, all demon kings inside could be released. Later, Yuj takes Alka aside, saying she wants to speak to her before freeing Vritri. Alka tells her to hurry since she wants to go see Lloyd. Yug says they'll never get along, activates a trap that captures Alka, and then says she's going for the sacred sword to release the demon kings. Alka asks if she's with Sue and Shoma, but Yug says she's talked enough and leaves Alka trapped. Meanwhile, Lloyd's group feels a strange presence but says they'll miss the village. Yug arrives, asking if they're ready to leave. Marie asks about her teacher, and Yug says she stayed behind to rest, but they should go on. Maybe she'll return stronger and pay them back for what was said. Marie says it's better to leave, and they go. Riho asks about Lloyd, and Yug says she'll talk to him about something and then bring him over. Riho and the others go through the portal. Lloyd then arrives and asks about Alka. Yug says maybe she collapsed from exhaustion, so Lloyd decides to go look for her. Later, Yug and Meltfan go through the portal. Yug asks if everyone is there and is surprised to see Meltfan, asking if any other villagers didn't cross. He says no, he'll bring vegetables and return. Yug says that's not possible since she closed the portal. Selene asks about Lloyd, and Yug says he'll stay behind a day for Alka. Then, they all depart for the city. Yug says everything is going as planned. Later, she finds Riho and offers that a friend might be able to fix her arm. After a while, we see Riho, after selling her dress, meet up with Mina, who asks her to visit Roll. When they arrive, Roll greets them and says she's been writing a book. Riho asks Roll about the person who controlled her to take the sacred sword. Roll says she doesn't remember, but she does recall a phrase. "What do I look like to you?" Riho remembers that phrase too. Roll also mentions there was someone small with him, eating a lollipop. Riho thinks of Yuge and leaves with Mina. Next, we see Riho and Mina approach Chrome, who's preparing for the exhibition match. He asks Riho if she can handle security, since both kings will be present. Riho, a bit annoyed, agrees, and Mina tells her to do her best. Chrome tells Mina she'll do Colin's duties since Colin is absent. We then see Alan hiding because he's been chosen for the match but doesn't want to fight. Riho notices that Sue and Lloyd's brother are in the stands, so she goes to ask the king to cancel the exhibition, fearing Azami might be in danger. The king listens and says he'll consider it. That night, we see Alka, who's lost hope that Lloyd will find her, but then her hero shows up and comes down to where she is. Alka asks how he knew she was there, and he says Yuge told him she had collapsed, so he came looking for her. He moves the rock she was trapped under, which doesn't seem natural. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Azami, Yuge tells Sue that everything is going according to plan, and that Lloyd won't make it in time. Sue congratulates her and says that even if they do arrive, he'll have someone ready to fight Lloyd. In the corner, we see a hooded person. Back with Lloyd, we see him jumping through the trees with Alka on his back. She tells him she has a plan to stop Yuge and save the world. Lloyd says that in that case, he'll go even faster. Later, we see Alka asking Lloyd if he understands the plan now. He says yes, while his family prepares the cannon and the runes to launch him to the kingdom of Azami. As he flies, Lloyd uses his wind magic to go even faster. The next day, the exhibition match between the kingdoms of Azami and Jiu begins. Alan gets ready to attack and runs at the hooded fighter, but when he attacks, they disappear and reappear in the sky. It's actually Makona. Meanwhile, Sue proposes an alliance between the kingdoms to the king of Azami, but the king flatly refuses. Sue signals Yuge to start her part, but Marie and Lloyd's friends intercept her. Surrounded, Yuge summons several giant locusts. Chrome gives Mina the signal to order everyone to fight, since the entire audience is military and they attack. Meltfan decides to fight Shoma, but Shoma easily defeats him, saying he wants to make the world better for his brother. Sue defeats Mina and Chrome, but then Alan attacks from behind, cutting off one of Sue's arms. Sue shrugs it off, saying he's immortal and only Lloyd can defeat him. Right then, Lloyd falls from the sky, saying Yuge is just too evil and that Alka told him to deliver that message. Yuji then summons a golem using Makona as its core. The golem, controlled by Yuge, attacks Lloyd, seriously injuring him, but Meltfan saves him. Riho notices that Makona reacts when Marie talks to her, so Riho lies and says she has a pair of Marie's panties. This lets Makona break free from the golem to go after them, giving Lloyd the chance to launch and destroy the golem. Yuji is distracted, so Selene takes the chance to steal Vritri and return her to her belt form, freeing her. Defeated, Yuge asks Sue and Shoma for help, but sees them praising Lloyd instead. Alka shows up, defeats all the giant locusts, and tells Yuge her plan failed. Yuge says it doesn't matter. If she has to create the world over and over, she'll still release all the demon kings in the last dungeon. Alka tries to finish her off, but Shoma stops her, says goodbye to his brother, and escapes with Yuge and Sue. A few days later, Lloyd and his friends gather for dinner at Marie's house, and that's how this anime ends.